And when that didn't come, I felt depressed and abandoned. I was in anticipation for the misery that would result should I choose to leave the church. I was very lonely and depressed. At some point, I realized that even though it would be hard, I was doing what was right for me. I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders once I made the decision to leave. I felt like I was being true to myself, and I anticipated that in years to come I would be thankful that I left sooner than later. I finally accepted my decision, and I felt liberated by it. So I think understanding these stages of grief, they work really well when you're transitioning out of any religion. And then the next one is Albert Ellis, REBT.
Question.
What?
I have a question.
Yeah,
I don't
go
know
ahead.
if you feel comfortable sharing, but
Okay.
you mentioned the reasons why people leave.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you leave?
Out of all those reasons, it was the doctrinal and theological reasons. I wasn't offended. I had the greatest ward. It was actually, that was kind of the hard part. So I was like, oh, I love these people. They're so cool. And once I left, it was like, kind of they distanced themselves from me. So, but yeah, it was doctrinal reasons.
So, have you had your name stricken?
I haven't yet, but I'm going to.
It can sometimes take years to do.
Yeah.
I tried years ago.
When?
Actually, I'll get to that because I did an interview with Sandra Tanner. Any ring a bell? Anybody? Okay, well, I'll talk about her in a second. She talks about that. So, anyway, REBT stands for Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, and it's a form of CBT. And I think it's a great option for the ex-Mormon. The fundamental assertion of rational emotive therapy is that the way people feel is largely influenced by how they think. So because the ex-Mormon is so used to thinking a certain way after years of reinforcement and conditioning, it's important that with a new life transition, these thoughts are reshaped to keep the person in balance. For me, it was like, I'm not a good person because I'm not a part of my religion anymore. And so I think you have to go through this process of, okay, wait a minute, these are irrational thoughts. Just because you're not in a religion doesn't mean you're a bad person. So the first step is to identify the irrational thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Second is to challenge those irrational thoughts. And then finally, you must gain insight and recognize long-held irrational thought patterns. You must realize that you are still a good person regardless of your religion. And this is actually known as the ABC model. You guys ever wondered where Vigil got that from? This is it. I didn't know that. Okay, and then lastly, there's a variety of online support. I actually printed a support service list for all of you guys. If you ever run into an ex-Mormon or know anybody who might need help, it would have been nice to have this when I left. And then actually, I didn't think that there was any face-to-face support groups anywhere in the community. And then I found the website meetup.com, and they have tons of different groups on there, and I found they call themselves Post-Mormons. And they meet like weekly in the Ogden area. There's also one in Salt Lake and Provo. So I'll pass these out at the end, but having these resources is very helpful. And I think face-to-face is the most helpful if an ex-Mormon knows at least one person who understands what they're going through, that can save them a lot of heartache, I think. Okay, so these are the 3 policies I chose. I'm going to go through each one. The first one, it's kind of like the one you were talking about, Utah Code Section 34A, and basically you can't have any discrimination in the workplace because of one's religion. So I'm not going to read that whole book. The next one's freedom of speech. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. And I just pulled up this example of how atheists are allowed to say what they want. And American atheists launched Go Godless instead of billboards. So they're attempting to keep church and state separated. And these are actual billboards in Texas. Just giving examples how church is kind of coming back, once in a while into state affairs, and they just want it to be separated. I thought that was a good example of freedom of speech. And then that's another one, which is also a good resource too when you're driving down the freeway. Then finally, freedom of religion. And at first I'm like, this doesn't apply if you're not going to go to a different religion, but for those who do decide a different religion, they have that freedom, but it also protects those who choose not to belong to a religion. So I think that's awesome also. And then, okay, my potential policies. Whew. Okay. Probably wondering why I have that picture up there. Okay. So I think it's kind of interesting to me that bishops and stake presidents who counsel individuals and families are able to do so without required education. And I think when you think of like priests, they have to have an undergraduate degree, and then they have to go to 4 years of seminary to do what they do. And I'm like, that's 8 years of school. And there's no guidelines. You don't have to have those things to be a bishop or anything. I know that bishops don't do the same thing as priests. They don't get paid for what they do. And they might not have the same responsibilities, totally different. But I think that if you're counseling families and individuals, you need to have some sort of background in counseling or some sort of education in that area, so you're not saying things that could be damaging to the family. I'm actually going to give you some examples. So in the survey, a couple of respondents said, this one's a female, she said, tell your bishops and leaders to tell their members to not divorce their spouse when they leave the LDS church. My husband was advised by his bishop to divorce me. We had 10 children. It was awful. The church that says families are the most important. You should be ashamed of yourselves. The other one, stop hurting marriages by driving a wedge between spouses on this issue. I have gone through hell and back and nearly divorced. We desperately need a general conference address telling spouses to not divorce an otherwise good spouse over non-belief. I have several friends who have been divorced over primarily this issue, and my own marriage is still on the rocks due to it, even though I'm fully active. So, just things like that. I mean, I don't think all bishops do this, but the ones that do, is like that's why there's a need for some sort of required education in that area. And then secondly, supportive services or resources as well leaves the church. I know I'm not saying that church religions need to be like, okay, good job, here you go. I'm going to provide these resources for you. I don't think that they need to provide like groups or anything, but just like this, a simple little list, of things that ways that they can find support would, I think, be awesome. Instead of going in there and being told all this stuff that you're doing horribly, I think it would be nice if they just said, okay, that's your choice. To help with the depression and loneliness, here's some supportive services that you might want to look up. So that's my 2 policies. And then I went to the Utah Lighthouse Ministry and met with Sandra Tanner. We talked for about an hour. And her and her husband have written over 40 books on the subject of Mormonism. They're actually very controversial individuals. He's actually passed away, but she's still going at it. So she talked to me about what she does for the community, for those who are leaving the church. She actually belongs to like a Christian religion, I'm not sure what one, but she stated that when people leave the church, if they are interested in another religion, there's kind of a cultural shock when going to different places because each Christian religion is very different. And so she kind of preps people so like they know what to expect. There might be a band, it might be very loud, it might be all this different stuff that they've never experienced in a Mormon church. So she tries to help them prepare for that. And then for people who aren't interested in that, she just talks to them about the issues, and she tries to help people who are struggling with the issues surrounding Mormonism by giving them information. So a lot of you would consider her books anti-Mormon literature. Something I liked about her stuff was it wasn't like negative toward Mormons, it just kind of gave the facts and quotes from different prophets and stuff like that. It wasn't like saying negative in any way, it was just actually giving history and information. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah, she talked to me about actually getting your name removed. She actually, people would go to her all the time and be like, how do I get my name removed? Because they would try and the church would come back saying, oh no, you didn't do it right. And so she kept getting all these questions from people, and so she decided, she has her own website, she decided to post or link, no actually she put it on her website, part of the church's, what's it called?
Policies?
Their policies of how to remove your name. So it was from their book. So she actually got sued by the church for doing that. Yeah, she had to take it down. So she has to tell people face to face now, I guess. But you have to actually send a written or typed letter to your bishop, and it can't be like a formal letter asking to have your name removed. So
It
Not
can't be a formal letter?
it can't be a formal letter.
What do you mean by that?
It can't be like a pre-written, like typed up,
Like it has
not
to
your
be
own
your
words.
feelings?
Yeah,
to
it
your
can't,
bishop?
can't be someone else's written stuff. It has to be yours.
It has to be handwritten, I'm guessing, right?
So then,
And I think it can be typed. Yeah.
so then they make the decision if they let you remove your name or not?
If you do it the right way, you can get it removed.
Getting it removed, I'm sorry, getting it removed does what for you? What does that do?
If you move somewhere, you don't want people coming,
Oh,
like
because
home
then you go and
teachers.
someone comes and visits you and
Yeah.
wants to know why you're not there that Sunday?
And they
Yeah.
just, you'll be counted as a member of the church.
Yeah,
Oh, so it stops counting you?
yeah, and I think there's probably a lot of people whose names are still in the records who aren't actually in the church anymore.
Has
Okay.
anyone tried, I heard way back, like, when I came out of the closet and was considering having my name removed, that they call family members and you tell them that you're trying to leave the church, like church, has anyone ever? I was
I
terrified
don't
that they were
think
gonna call my 90-year-old grandmother
Oh.
and harass her.
Yeah, I don't think they do that.
I'm
No,
not
it
even.
does. It happened to my ex. He, with Prop 8, he decided that he was leaving the church and everything, and so they called his mother and father and his oldest sister, and then he had to have an interview with the bishop, interview with the stake president, and his name's still on the records.
Really?
Yeah, he wasn't able to get it removed. I don't know if he has since then, but
That's surprising.
See, I don't even know if my name's still on it or not. I had the interview with the
Get an
bishop.
official letter.
I-
A friend of mine did, like 4 years after doing the like official interviews, she got an official formal
Oh,
reason.
well then I guess I'm
Officially
still
removed.
Mormon, guys.
You're still a member.
Yeah.
There you go.
Darn it.
They did.
Yeah, it's very hard, obviously, to get it removed. So social worker implications. I think that as social workers, if you guys are going to be here in Utah, I think you need to understand not only the Mormon culture and their